Hello, and welcome back to Dr. Freda's Power Sessions, where we stop performing growth and start living it. I'm Dr. Freda, and this is a space for real conversations about self trust, emotional intelligence, and what it actually takes to lead yourself through life and love. Here, we don't rush healing, we don't sugarcoat truth, and we don't confuse awareness with transformation. Power isn't about having it all together. It's about being honest enough to show up differently with yourself first. Every session is an invitation to pause, reflect, and choose alignment over autopilot. Now let's get into today's session. Today's conversation is one I think a lot of people feel but can't quite name because most conflicts, especially in relationships, aren't about what was said. They're about what was heard. And we're talking about emotional filters today, those invisible lenses that shape by our past experiences, wounds, beliefs, our nervous systems patterns, and they're quietly deciding how we interpret tone, intention, and their meaning. Now, joining me today is Dr. Randall Alifano, and Randall has over 40 years of integrating psychology and spirituality in his private practice. But his story started in high school when his friends came to join him with their anxious thoughts and concerns, and they left feeling better. Now, one told him that listening was his superpower, and Randall has seen firsthand the transformative power of becoming heard and offers concrete examples of how listening in the raw can help deepen our relationships, enhance our personal growth, and end our accepted state of isolation. Now, in his book, Listening in the Raw, Coming Home to Receptivity invites us into a tender revolution, one that begins with quieting our own internal chatter and leaning to in presence. Now, it requires learning to sit in the unknown, which is unfamiliar with a lot of people, and not to be run by the tickles of anxiety that say we should be understanding or helping prematurely. Now, when we listen from a place of empathy rather than ego, we shift the entire dynamic. We stop trying to fix, defend, or perform. And instead, we simply receive. That shift is the essence of intimacy, real human to human presence. So, without further ado, I would like to welcome Randall. How are you, Randall?
Hi, Rita. Great to be here. That was a great monologue. That was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And so, I want to just dive into our conversation because I think this conversation is timely, especially in the time that we're in now. But before we start talking about emotional filters and everything and where they come from, I want to level set with our listeners. When we talk about emotional filters, how do you define them in a way people can actually recognize within themselves?
That's a great question because I think the problem is we typically don't. And we typically think of our filters as ourselves. And we don't even know that we're wearing sunglasses or several pairs of sunglasses so that everything we're perceiving, we lose all the shade, all the hues, brightness, contrast. We don't see what's really true right in front of us oftentimes. So it's hard for us to identify filters. And I use the term filters because in psychology, we talk about defenses. And we understand that because of childhood trauma or whatnot, we develop these protections, defenses. And I thought that's certainly true, but it almost sounds like the most important aspect is we're protecting ourselves from attacks. Filters is more broad based. If I'm raised in a straight up Catholic world, then everybody else is wrong about religion unless they're Catholic. And it may not because I was traumatized. It may just because I was raised very strictly in a particular philosophy, religion, whatever it is. And we think that's the truth. And then we go out into the world and we meet Jewish folks, Muslim, and we realize, oh, they're brothers and sisters just like me. Well, I don't know. And to take off that filter and see others as family,
Mhm.
that's not an easy thing to do oftentimes.
That's true. And I'm wondering when you say, basically, I always like to use the term we're domesticated because in a family, you don't have a choice. You're born into a certain culture, you're born into a certain religion, certain background, socioeconomic. So you really, as a child, you don't have any say until you pretty much emancipated, whether that's 16 or 18 or whenever you decide to leave the coop, right?
Or 60.
60. Exactly. And for me, that's true for me. I'm originally from Birmingham, Alabama, raised in a very conservative religious household. And I moved. it- I just knew it wasn't for me. I couldn't explain it. I just knew I wanted more. And I shouldn't say it wasn't for me because I'm grateful for my background, but I just knew it was something more outside of Alabama. And so I went to Chicago, stayed there 13 years, and now I live um, in the Bay Area of California. So two very polar opposites of, of Alabama, okay, as far as conservative. So I definitely understand how we can have filters because even when I went to Chicago, I had so many lenses on where I was just it was it was definitely, a learning experience, I like to say that. So, why do you think that we are so conditioned to use this protective lens when we put on these filters, whether
Well,
it's the childhood trauma?
my bias is people don't listen. My lady and I, who's also a therapist, we watch TV or movies, and we're always commenting on how the parents in the show aren't listening to what their kids are trying to tell them. And of course, as a therapist, you know that that's what we're hearing all the time in our offices. When people really drop down into vulnerabilities, it's oftentimes parents didn't hear them, and parents put their own material on the kid. So I notice a real difference when people really feel listened to, their filters soften and their vulnerabilities or their truer self starts to come out. And that, to use the term you used earlier, that's when intimacy in the contact really happens.
Mhm,
But when they don't have to, effort to get themselves heard, they just know that I or you, they're sitting here really wanting to receive what they're saying, even under their narrative. And people get that like that. If I
mhm,
become a therapist and I'm going to heal them, I can feel they step back a little bit. They may not
mhm,
comment on it, but they step back. And when I lean in, because I'm genuinely curious about, wait, what was that like for you when mom or dad did that thing?
mhm,
There's an opening. Their energy comes forward and they open up. They're aching to be listened to. We're
mhm,
all aching to be listened to. And when we're not, we start to filter in what we can say and what we can't say. So even vulnerabilities become things we want to avoid because it's too risky, as opposed to, oh, that's a signpost. Whatever just came up in me, it's telling me I got hurt someplace by talking about this feeling, this event. So instead of shutting it down, maybe this person I'm sitting with really wants to listen, really wants to listen. So I can start to open up and share those things that I've even filtered from myself. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. And at the same token, you have to be in a safe space to even want to open up as well.
Amen.
And if you're not, whether it's a partner or a parent, like you said, you and your lady friend watch your shows and the parents are not listening, if that child doesn't feel that it's a safe space, they're just not going to share anyway. And I see that by the time they're adults, and then they wonder why they cannot keep a relationship, and they wonder, what is it in me that I keep losing these type of relationships? And to your point earlier, it's the communication. But I'm often posed this is a rhetorical question when I give to my clients is what type of safe space you set up for your partner that you want reciprocated, basically.
I think you just said it, curiosity. And you can
Yes,
tell
yeah.
the speaker knows when you're genuinely curious or not.
Mm,
It reminds me of a story. This woman I saw when I just started my practice a very long time ago. She came in and she had seen many therapists before, psychiatrists, and she came in and started telling me a teeny bit about her trauma. And it was the kind of horror I had never heard of before. And I was young and didn't know. And so instead of going, "Oh my God, that happened to you?" It was, "Oh my God, that happened to you? What happened?" And she could feel I was genuinely curious about her experience. So she
mm,
started saying a little more and a little more. And it became clear she was testing me. And finally, at the end of our first session, she said, "You know what? I've already told you more about my trauma history than I've told any of my other therapists." And
mm,
again, I was young. I said, "Why?" And she said, "Because I could tell you really want to hear it. And I could tell they really didn't. As soon as I got into the really dark material, they would physically move back. I could see on their faces they were stunned and they didn't know how to respond. You just were spontaneous and curious and present and
mhm,
really wanted to get what it was like for me instead of fix me or do any of those things." And then that she's just started really pouring out the horrors she went through. It was stuff that Stephen King would freak out about. And I'm
mm,
still in contact with her 35, 40 years later. And she's my hero because she brought it. She relaxed all those filters and told me all of her experiences and she integrated them and she radically transformed. It was amazing to, and so a therapist may think I did great work. I helped that person. My feeling is she's a hero. She taught me
yeah,
so much about
yeah,
the power of just listening from the perspective of I just want to get what it's like for you over there. So
mm,
listening didn't just change her, it changed me. It opened me up
mm.
to a whole new world.
I love that perspective. I love that because so many people speak to be heard
Yes.
and or to respond and not truly listen. I always say God gave you 2 ears and a mouth for a reason.
That's right. That's exactly right.
But, I'm curious, Randall, how and I know it comes from a place of empathy, but how do a person if you're in a relationship, how can that partner show up and be curious without being a detective? Does that make sense? You can ask a question, but sometimes people can ask questions is almost giving off nosiness or judgmental, if that makes sense.
It totally does. The way I would think about it is a detective goes after something, there's an aggression there, and they already have a storyline in their head that they wanna get after that particular thing, and genuine curiosity, I think, ties into what I like to call innocence, which is the
Mm,
core of who we are, you know,
mm,
who we are before parents, siblings, whatever, started to do numbers on us and we started to contract self. So when my lady Davida comes toward me with real curiosity, I know it like that.
mm,
And when she's struggling and coming at me differently, I pick that up. And the
mm.
reverse is also true. So we talk about that. We talk about, "Hey, you're asking me questions. Is there something else going on?" "Yeah, yeah," and then we get out with but if we keep in mind underneath all these filters, there's just this innocent person who wants what they want, don't want what they don't want, and across the board, what we want is real contact. Then as she talks, even if I get a little triggered, I go, "Oh, there's a filter," and I come back
Mm,
to, I wanna get what it's like. Because if I keep on going with curiosity, whatever that trigger was in me, I go, "Oh, I misinterpret it," and it just ebbs, it goes away, and I'm right with her again. So I don't
mm.
take the bait like you were saying. People listen, and then they wanna respond. They say, "Oh, yeah, that reminds me of a story."
Or they take offense thinking you're talking about them when this person is literally trying to express themselves.
Right, right.
Yeah, I watch my partner and I, we watch, reality TV, and I know some of it's scripted, But sometimes I'm watching and I'm thinking, are they speaking the same language? Like, I'm sitting here as a third party, and I'm like, I know what she's saying, and I know what he's saying, and they're doing this.
Yeah. So
How are they even missing this? It's so simple.
it's so simple.
But you said something a few minutes ago where when your lady friend comes and actually speak and ask question out of curiosity versus if she's struggling with trying to say something. What is that basically, what is the root cause of the why behind your asking this versus are you genuinely just curious to know something? And I'm curious to see how many times people in relationships ask questions because there is a root cause to it of why they're asking it, but they're just so uncomfortable with themselves and or with their partner to even know what that root cause is. Does that make
It
sense?
makes perfect sense. And this may be a little bit of a off-topic thing, but you
Yeah.
remind me of I'm a papa of 3 boys, and what I learned early on was, when they're 5, 6, 4, whatever, they have a hard time coming up with language.
Yeah.
So, I watch parents get frustrated with, "Look, I told you to clean your room, just go clean your room." "But mom," "Don't but me, go," as
Yeah.
opposed to, "But mom." "What, sweetie? What is it?" Where where you give the kid a lot of room to try to drop down, find the language, find the feeling, and communicate it. And then you could say, "Okay, I'm glad we had that talk. Now go clean your room." You know, you don't
Mm,
have to let go of their task, but make the listening the most important thing in that moment, and let the kid know,
mm,
I want to give you the time and space to find the language so that we can have this contact. But like you're saying about reality TV, what you see is people don't really listen with that curiosity. They have their own thoughts, their own attitudes, their own filters, and
mhm,
they're not coming together. So if we are taught no one's going to listen to us with 1,000 recapitulations of that training, we come into the world as adults believing, talk about an organizing principle, people don't really want to listen to me. And that's
mm,
heartbreaking to me that
mm,
very few of us have faith that other really wants to hear from us,
mm,
or that we really know the power of really listening, how we change inside. The rap is that listening is in the service of the speaker. And even though
mm.
that's true, it's also in the service of the listener.
Yes. Yes. Oh my goodness. That is powerful. Randall, that is powerful what you just said.
Good.
That is because so many people, like you said, just want to be seen and heard. But especially if they haven't received that as a child, they grow up and they get that trauma is like it's almost like a stamp, whatever, 6, 10, 15, or whatever. And you notice as they're becoming an adult, when they react to that same trigger, they go back to that 6-year-old. That 6-year-old self where mommy, daddy, grandparents, teachers did not hear them or
Yep.
listen to them, support them, protect them. And so you see this behavior like the yelling, the screaming, the throwing, the kicking. And as an adult, we're like, well, at least me, because I wasn't, my mom was very strict. We didn't play that, So, I'm looking like, okay, what is happening? But that is that little child in that adult that's really want to be seen and heard. But then they perpetuate that same cycle in their relationships of either choosing someone who don't see them or hear them, or they reciprocate that same action of not hearing
Yes, yes, yes. Exactly that.
and listening. How do we break this cycle? How do we say, okay, I want this, but I don't even know where to start, especially when they have these patterns, this behavior of reacting. I like to say just reacting, not healthy conversations.
Okay. Well, that's again a really good question. Um, I think this is why therapy can be so helpful if the therapist really sits and listens and doesn't follow. I mean, one of the things that's heartbreaking for me is when I was coming up, it was a little different, but now interns and students are really taught to assess, diagnose, and treat the diagnosis. So talk about a filter. I mean, just blinders on. And so already they can't really hear. So, I become very critical of therapists sometimes if they're running with the diagnosis instead of who is this person? And I'm genuinely curious. So, if you want to be heard, hopefully a good therapist, counselor, coach, friend, partner could do that. My bias from when I was even a little kid was I could sit around my big Italian Sunday, dinner and everybody talking over everybody else, nobody really listening. And I remember as a little kid looking around the table thinking, Why isn't anybody listening to anybody else? Somebody speaks and somebody interrupts that other person. And it's cacophonous. No one's really present and here. And so my bias is if I really want to make contact with someone, I'm not going to start talking about myself. I want to know if they can feel that I really want to get to know them. And then I'll bring myself in if we're having that intimate contact and they become my best friends.
Mm.
But I've just my bias or my training was I really want to listen. I really want to hear what it's like for you. And then we'll go forward from there.
You know, it's so funny that you say that because my partner does the same thing. He does not he probably will say a sentence or 2 when he's talking to someone new, and he's like, "Frida, just let them talk about themselves, but people will tell you exactly who they are, what they need, and what they want if you just listen.
If you give me a chance.
You give them a chance." And he was the first one who told me that, and I was just this was years ago because I was like, "Why you don't talk a lot? Like, come on, talk, talk, talk." I come from a house of, like, strong women, and you have to get your point across.
Hey, you got to push it. Right.
And he's just, "No, well, tell me how you're doing. What do you need?" And then it gets to the point where, like, I'm exhausted, and I really wanna hear from him, but he actually taught me how to respond and treat him because everyone is so different, and I'm curious too, Randall.
Wait, can I interrupt you?
Yes, go ahead, yes.
What's it like for you that you're with a partner who you really get really wants to listen to you?
It is at first, it was very off-putting for me because I've had past relationships where I had to compete for so much attention and a voice. And some people say they want a strong woman, but when they get it, they just, why are you so strong?
Back up.
Stay in your place. Exactly. Especially as a Southern woman, we're meant to have a certain space and place. And I just never subscribed to that. I just haven't. I couldn't. And so coming to him when we first met, it brought up a lot of trauma, unprocessed trauma within myself from a previous well, because I was married before. It ended. He was a good person. He wasn't good for me. I just say that. And I bless him in, his endeavors and everything, but he just wasn't good for me and I wasn't good for him. But he never listened. He never listened, and partly because he had some emotional and mental things that hopefully he's getting treated for now. And so when Matt and I met, he was just saying things and doing things, and I really thought he was gaslighting me. I was like, "This is not right. This
Can't
is
be true.
this cannot be true. You're up to something. You're trying to get something out of me, and I don't know what it is." And he really could not understand where that trauma was coming from because I didn't just freely share that. This took months, years, and I still share things now, even 6 years later. I'm still peeling back the onions and things of that nature.
Talk about, yeah, peeling away filters, filter after filter for you to slowly believe, wait, you really want to be here? You really want to get me?
Yes.
Yep. You're doing it. That's great. Good. I like this guy.
Yes. He he genuinely really is a genuine great person, and he really wants the best, but it just best for me, it was just so off-putting because when you're not used to it and sure, I had past boyfriends that weren't jerks. I don't wanna just paint that picture, but I definitely my marriage was it took a lot out of me emotionally and mentally, and that was 2010, so that was 16 years ago, and marriage is a beautiful thing, I do wanna get remarried, but I had to tell him when we first met that I was a mess. Okay, I was a mess, and I had to be very transparent with him that I was a mess. And I always say life is a process. Until you take your last breath, you're gonna always learn, grow, and just heal from something that's within you that you didn't even know was still there.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you're
So
sticking
yeah.
with it.
Yes, I am. And it's so funny because and you're a healer or practitioner as well, but how we can go through our own things, but we can compartmentalize and just help so many other people, and we can see other people's um opportunities of growth like that. And then when it comes to us, it's just like, okay, now wait a minute. I'm reacting this way because what did this come from? Okay, let's sit with self. What is it? What are you hearing? And where's this coming from? And why do you feel this way? Because he's not saying any of this.
Right.
So, yes, but how in your opinion, Randall, do you think 2 people can hear the same message and have 2 different point of views, interpretation of the same message? And I ask this because, excuse me, my partner and I, when we look at reality TV and everything, we can see the same scene and he can get a totally different interpretation from that same scene as myself, and I'm just like, "Are you listening to the same thing I'm listening to? How how can 2 people hear the same message but have 2 different interpretations of
Well, I'm guessing you already know my answer.
it?"
I think that's a great demonstration of filters. I mean, we hear what we hear through all these filters that we've accumulated over the years. So it's hard to just drop in and hear what's really true. But at the same time, I don't want to be absolute. It may be that you're sensitive to something or he's sensitive to something that the other person isn't. So they're hearing a quality of something that really grabs them. And so they go there, which may have a lot of value. So I don't want to dismiss it all as just filters, but you may have a sensitivity that doesn't have. So what I like to do, even though I don't watch reality TV, is pause. So wait, what are you seeing? Why? How are you seeing that? Because I'm curious now. Why does she see it that way? And then I learn more about her and her filters, and she learns more about me and my filters. So when some months later one of us is triggered, we have all this information in us about the filters that we have, how we hold ourselves back, where we get hurt, where we stumble and bumble. And so we don't have to get reactive. And I'm sure you see this in your practice when you're working with a couple and someone's genuinely trying to reach out to the other and they give 3 paragraphs and the other person responds to the one word they said that can't believe you said that word. And it's like, whoa, let's pause. I I see that you grabbed onto that word. Did you hear the other 3 paragraphs? No.
Mhm.
She said that word and I think, right, okay, here we go. Here we go. You just missed they're totally trying to reach you and love you in that place, and because they triggered that filter, that defense maybe,
Mhm.
none of the rest is heard. It's all, "You did that thing, and you didn't do this," and we get reactive. So how to
Mm.
become ever more sensitive to that, because it always comes with a somatic contraction.
Mhm.
I'm getting tight, I'm not breathing as much, my legs are rigid, whatever it is. Oh, I'm getting a message. Time to listen to me. I'm blocking something, and then opening.
That's a good point. And I'm curious, you said this earlier about how parents don't listen to kids, like, "Go clean your room," and moving up, and we know and move on, and we know that every filter is created usually not formidable years, and kids just do not feel like some kids don't feel like they're being heard or seen by their parents. What advice would you give a parent, whether they're married or a single parent just trying to have a lot on their plate? They're working, trying to make ends meet, taking care of the house, raise kids, deal with life, deal with their own unprocessed trauma. How can they show up for their child or children so they don't repeat that cycle of how they felt when they were a kid, but still deal with life, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think partly it depends on, like you were saying, what's their situation. If they're a single parent, they're struggling financially, then I kind of want to hold them like,
Mm.
you're facing quite a task here. And then I won't go into my New York attitude, which is, I have an idea, shut up and listen. Oftentimes, what I'll tell parents is, do you get how? Well, let me back up. When I first started, I would work with children. And when children felt safe enough to talk about their parents, I heard what we're talking about, which is mom and dad don't listen to me. I stopped
Mm.
working with kids. So when parents would call me and say, hey, my 10-year-old, dot, 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 I said, great. You and your partner come in, we'll talk about it. And it was always, I mean, and always, they couldn't hear what the child was trying to say. They would,
Mm.
their own filters were getting in the way and they couldn't just pause. Okay, sweetie, what is it you're saying? Like, I remember a time when I have twin boys and I came home from work and they had broken a little stained glass window that was on a cabinet. And right away, I could feel my anger like, what the hell happened?
Yeah.
Slow down, Randall. Chill. Hey, guys, what happened? Papa? And they were scared. They knew
Mm.
they screw up. We were playing with the ball. Number one, you're not supposed to play with the ball in the house. Get out in the
Mm.
backyard. I thought, contain that, Randall. Regulate that. And,
Mm.
we were throwing the ball and Rocco threw it off my head and my butt hit the window and broke it. And I could tell they were both like, what's Papa gonna do? Because this could go bad. I could just feel, because I was listening, not just running with my anger. They're
Mm.
scared. They know they screwed up. They're admitting it. They're taking responsibility. So I said, well, let's see. If it was your butt that hit the window and broke it, then I guess your butt's at fault. We should reprimand your butt. And they giggled and we laughed. And I said, okay, guys, so how do we figure this out? And they said, well, we should replace the glass. And I said, I am so proud of you guys. Look what you just did. You took responsibility. You're owning it. So we'll work out how to get the glass fixed together. But I could have missed it. I could have missed this story that we still talk about. Now they're 44. We still talk about it. Uh, and they could have just learned, yeah, when we screw up, Papa gets angry and we should shut down and pull away because it's not going to go well.
I like what you did because you listen to your boys, but you also allow them to have accountability and be solution focused. So I like what you did there because so many parents would reprimand their children, and it's almost debilitating where people are not solution focused. They shut down and they don't know what to do. And it's just like, well, you still have to get it solved. Like, what's next? But you allowed that space for them to figure that out.
Right. One would agree that a good filter is we have to teach our kids to take responsibility. I agree with that. But if that filter of you have to take responsibility comes in the form of you broke it, you fix it. If there's an attitude, then we're not just communicating, you need to take responsibility, sweetheart. We're communicating, you're bad and wrong, you screwed up, you better show up, or whatever.
Mhm.
So, how to first listen. What was it like for you? What happened? What went down over there? And then talk about, all right, how do we handle this? What do you feel like would be fair or good?
Mm.
And listen to that. Let them wrestle with, yeah, what would be right?
Mm.
They're learning. The world wants to hear from me. And I get to struggle with, yeah, what is right action here now that I'm not scared or withdrawn or protective? How would I fix that glass? How do I make this right? And that was a
Mm.
whole different relationship.
And now, and even that relationship, it builds you all's relationship even stronger because you all have that open communication where they feel like they can come to you without,
Right.
you'll probably, depending on what it is, of course you're going to be a parent and, hold them accountable, but it's still that open line of communication where they feel comfortable talking to you.
Right.
I absolutely, I'm sorry. That's an amazing example, an amazing story. For all the parents who are listening, I must say, I wish I know my parents divorced when I was 2, and so my mom was that busy parent, she was a school teacher, so she had to deal with kids all day and then come home to her own kids. And now I know as an adult, she was mentally and emotionally exhausted. Like, she was
Yes.
exhausted.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So, after we get reprimanded, then hours later she would want to talk, and I'm like, "I don't wanna talk now.
Little late.
You're late. Like, back up." So I get that. I really enjoyed that story. I really enjoyed that. I know your boys are just so proud of you and you all's relationship that you all developed over the years.
Yeah, we do well together.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So when you see your clients, but I know you don't work with kids anymore, you work more with the parents because it's a direct effect on the kids when the parents have these filters on. But what do you tell the parent, whether it's a couple or individual, what do you tell that they are when they are operating from old emotional filters? How do you get them to be aware of that so they can communicate to their children? So they can have those success stories like you just said with the stained glass, the stained broken glass.
It to me, it really depends on their self-awareness, their how can they tune into what's true for them, with different levels of awareness. But if they have some awareness, I mean, if I'm really listening, when they're talking about their kid, I can see the somatic contraction. So I'll go after that. I'll say, "So can you feel that tension in you? What's the tension? What's the feeling right there?" And then the frustration or they're exhausted or whatever it is. So first let's deal with that. And then when they get that, then I'll say, "So what your best guess, what do you think your kid is trying to tell you that they're
Mm,
waking up at night scared of the monster under the bed or whatever it is? What are they really trying to say that they're not quite able to say?" Because I want
mm,
them to soften their filters, as it were. Because then parents, genuinely speaking, really do want to get what it's like for their kid.
yeah.
So I help them get out of their own way, essentially. I help them see you're not hearing because you're contracted.
I wish you can go to like all the schools PTA meetings and talk to the parents about how to communicate with their kids. My sister is a school teacher now, and she teach special education.
Beautiful.
And yes, and she tells me about all the meetings she goes to, talking to parents about their children, and the parents are in such denial. And it's heartbreaking. She said these kids are not bad. Some of them don't even have learning disabilities. They just are not heard at home. And so they think that they're gonna come to school and the school is just gonna make everything. You're at school, what, 8 hours a day, 7, 8 hours? And so she said it's so frustrating talking to parents on how to parent their child, and it's not as receptive because she's a school teacher. So, I just wish you can go to all the schools and the PTA meetings I don't even know if they have PTA meetings still anymore. I don't know. But talk to the parents because they definitely need some guidance. And I like to tell my clients, our parents are human too. We have to offer some type of grace and compassion with them as well because they can only give you what they cup can hold. And
That's right.
and I have to when I came to that conclusion about my own, now I can explain to other people like did we all have some type of trying childhood? No one came out unscathed. Let's just be crystal clear.
Amen.
No one did. So, but how do you learn from that so you don't repeat that same cycle? And that's the only thing I'm trying to to out.
I think that from the joy of when you do it, and for example, your kid or your partner, they suddenly really show up and you're hearing something from them that you hadn't heard before. That's the reward is like, like with my boys with the glass is, "Oh, you're scared." Well, I don't wanna jump on that and make you more scared. And then we get to have this great contact and we get to joke about it later, and then they feel safe to talk to me more. And now there's a flow, there's a nice energy between us, whereas if I had taken the easy route, which is, "What the hell did you do? Don't you know blah, 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 blah," whatever I would say, they learn, okay, separate. And kinda like what you're saying, if I came to the next day and said, maybe I came down a little hard on you guys," that would be good to admit it,
Yeah.
but it's a little late.
Exactly.
And the kicker to me is it's not just that we're having this negative impact on our kids, we're ripping ourselves off. When my boys can come to me, even at 44, and bring vulnerability about what their partner did or something at their job, and we have a real contact, that's the best moment of my day. I get to really have contact with my kids or my lady or my client or whomever. So again, the benefit of really listening, it's good for us too, not just for the other.
Yes. So I'm curious, Randall, do you give your every patient your book, Listening in the Raw? And is it coming home to receptivity? Is it like a requirement for them to read this book prior to coming to you or while working with you? Because yes, working with you is amazing, but I think also hearing and reading is doing a double effect. Like, is that part of that process as well?
No, I don't require
No.
anybody to read it. No, 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 no.
I feel like it is such it's almost like a roadmap. It's or it's a tool. I always tell people we all need a toolbox. And whatever you have in your toolbox, when life happens, you need to reach in and get something out that's gonna help you in that present moment. Your book is a resource. So I'm putting that in my toolbox,
Thank you.
me personally. So, and I'm just curious. I do because I am going to have it in the show notes, but and we're coming up on our time. But how can people work with you, and where can we purchase this book that can change so many relationships, whether it's platonic, romantic, professional? How can we get our hands on this national treasure?
I like you a lot right now. Well, the book's on Amazon, and a fun thing about the book is it's also on Audible. And my son, Lucas Rocco, the Earl of Dad Jokes, he reads it. So it's a father-son gig. So it's really fun. So they could get it there. And then if they want, they can go to my website, which is Dr. Randall Alifano. And they should also call Dr. Freda and get into therapy with her.
Yes, no. And do you see patients nationwide, worldwide? Do you do in person only?
In person, online, and yeah, because I'm a ordained minister, I don't have to just see people in California. I see them all over the world. I've seen people in Egypt, Denmark, all over. So it's been really great.
So you're helping people worldwide.
I'd like to think so, yeah.
Yes. Who have it's so funny because this podcast, I mean it for to help everyone, but this particular podcast specifically has definitely I already know it's helped my listeners, but it also helped me too.
Oh,
So
thank you so much.
it definitely has helped me as I continue to grow and evolve as a person as well. So I do want to say that. I definitely thank you for depositing that in me, and you probably didn't even realize you did, but thank you.
Well, that touches my heart. Thank you so much. And
Yes.
Frida, I have to tell you, just meeting you for the first time, you're a treasure too. I love your openness and your willingness to really hear and change as a result of it. That's not so common out
Yes.
there. So God bless. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I am definitely a work in progress, but I appreciate I appreciate. Thank you. So, without further ado, I would like to say thank you, Randall, again for coming on and sharing your pearls, your words of wisdom. And I am Dr. Frida, and I will see everyone next